Hey everyone, it's Saturday, and welcome back to another episode of the 6-5 podcast. Why did I say it's Saturday? Because normally we do it on Friday, but actually more and more we're doing it on Saturday, and that's because Fridays seem to be busy travel days right now because we're back, baby. Everything is back. Everything is back. The travel's back. The advisory back. The market is back for the moment. It's exploded, except yesterday, NVIDIA lost $250 billion in market cap. They gained and lost in AMD. Just another average trading day on Wall Street. But no, a lot going on. It's episode 207, Patrick. And you've been away. You've been on a little vacay, but I didn't let you go too much on vacay because I had to take you with me to Las Vegas. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. I mean, if vacay means, a 2-day trip to Vegas and working half the day, I'll take it. No, listen, had some good time on the slopes. I have 3 kids and I've got one left who's not gainfully employed. This will be his, not the last spring break, but his next to last. Yeah, we went skiing, had fun. It was good. Now we're back. Just got in today. Our entire city is full of South by Southwesters. Welcome, everybody. Don't have too much fun out there, but if you do, it's fine. Our APD doesn't have the staff to do anything about it, so move on.
My gosh. And this political message is brought to you by Patrick Moorhead, running for conservative mayor of, anyway. Listen, it's funny. I shared my post. I just went back through everything today. I had 25 different requests to moderate, to speak, to be a guest, or to attend, and I'm doing 0. I am absolutely boycotting for no particular reason because I think South by is great. But you know what? Sometimes when like the party's in your own city or in your own home, what do you want to do more than anything is slip into the quiet spaces. I put a picture up of that Homer Simpson sliding back into the bushes. I said, that's me during South by Southwest. Not that I don't love it, Pat, but
Dan, I've lived here almost 25 years and I've been to 2. So
yeah.
I'm there.
Well, by the way, you're going this year though. You're doing some big stuff. Why don't you tell everybody what you're up to?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm really, really excited. I'm going to be moderating a conversation with Michael Dell on Thursday, and we're going to be talking about Austin, tech, where he thinks the next wave of investments are. And, I'm going to ask some personal questions too, and not too personal. Anything that if you picked up his book, you would see there. But he's a great guy. I mean, I can't believe how grounded he is as a human being, given his net worth. And I just appreciate all the time he's given me over the years and paid attention to me when I was, I guess, insignificant, you would say. And I'm not that I'm saying I'm super significant now, but 13 years into this new role, 13 years into this role, yeah, the company has gained some significance.
And there you have it. So, well, I mean, look, the man crossed into the 100 billion club.
He did.
I mean, you're only separated by a handful of zeros.
No, totally. I mean, I think my net worth is about $100,000. So,
You've been making high 5 figures now for the last several years, and I want to congratulate you on that. But listen, everybody, we have a great show. We're going to be talking about our visit to Las Vegas for HP Amplify. We're going to talk about a couple earnings, HP and Marvell. We're going to talk OpenAI, NVIDIA, AMD, and Apple. We're going to have a bonus topic because, well, it's our podcast and we can do whatever we want. So if you don't like it, you know where the exit button is. Hit that exit button and move on to the next thing. But if you do like what you're hearing, we'd love for you to subscribe. So just a quick point over to that subscribe. We hit the big topics every single week here on the 6-5, and we try to pull no punches, and that's the way we like to roll. The show is for information and entertainment purposes only, and while we will be talking about publicly traded companies, we ask that you please do not take anything we say as investment advice.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. All right, Patrick, why don't we start off? We were at HP's massive partner event this year called Amplify in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I have to tell you, the PC industry has gotten away from big tent events. And then you had folks like Lenovo come in. PCs are a part of Dell Tech World, but not a big piece. but HP brought it, right? They brought it across workforce solutions, across PCs, across printers. And it was really about the connective tissue of AI, honing in on what it could do for hybrid work. And I really like the focus. And it's not that there aren't consumer PCs or consumer printers, but they really honed in on the work part. I think that's smart, given that I believe that's where the AI opportunity is. And also, by the way, it's where the margins are, right? Unless you're Apple, you're not printing money as it comes to the consumer market. So a lot of good insights here. And I've been covering HP for 13 years. I worked for a company that HP acquired called Compaq from 95 to 99. And, a lot of really good things have stuck, like focusing on the channel, focusing on use cases. I really love the conversation that we had with Personal Systems, Alex Cho, on use cases, not specs, use cases, not specs. And then when you put an entire layer of services on top of that Dave Schull is in charge of, and you sprinkle in their printers, by the way, there's been ink as a service before any of this as a service stuff became popular. And I do like the focus. Dell and Lenovo have end to end, but HP just seems very focused. And I like what I saw. One thing, my final comment on the keynote, and by the way, you can watch the 13 videos that Dan and I did for all the insights there. What I loved, what they had is, I've never seen the industry come out before in a way like this. CEO of Microsoft, CEO of Google, CEO of NVIDIA, AMD, Qualcomm, and Intel. And it was just, I've never seen that. And I'm not talking about a video that you play, right? That we see a lot at these events. These were on stage. I think only 3 of them were video, but they were live video. In fact, one guest came on late. I don't know, didn't come in on time. And so they had to do a real-time change in terms of guests. And they had to get Pat Gelsinger on there pretty quickly. If you were wondering where the furniture was for them sitting down there, it wasn't on there because Pat wasn't supposed to be the first speaker. I think it was Satya. But I left the show with a higher level of confidence on what the team is putting together. I think they're being very conservative on the call of AI PC. But that's okay. I think that's a good place to be because, quite frankly, the industry can't show what's coming down the pike in the middle of the year, which I think will get a lot of people excited.
Yeah, it was a great overall keynote and set of keynotes. Pat, you and I weren't there for the whole thing, but day 2 actually continued with the momentum. And there was a lot of rumblings about what it would be, but we sort of we ran the gambit. You ran the gambit of, the big partners on the OS side. You had Microsoft there, and of course for Chromebooks, which is a big part of the HP business. We had Sundar there. Some interesting inflections on Gemini, and that.
Listen. I mean, how do you play it, right? Gemini is under attack big time. Do you hide, or do you bring your CEO out, right, and your founders? And that's exactly what we've seen. And Sundar, said Gemini 5 times. I mean, by the way, when he got on and he said, "Here's our AI strategy," it was silent in that room. People were just on every word that, like, what is he going to say here? I thought he did a good job. Now they have to execute, right?
Well, look, sometimes, in the process of evolving, mistakes happen. We don't know the exact situation. We can only speculate. It seems that Google's up for the challenge to try to regain the trust of the market, and we will see how that plays out over a period of time. But you had Microsoft and Google on that side, and then of course, we start off with Pat Gelsinger being in good spirits about having to be called up early. Made a few jokes, threw a few punches, threw a nice punch.
I think he literally said, "Where's the furniture?"
Yeah, I mean, and he threw a few
It was so
punches
good.
about the Core Ultra being the first in-market AI PC, and of course, AI PC means different things. And perhaps over time, our team
Did
at
he
Signal.
thank Cristiano? Did he thank Cristiano?
He
Also
did.
saying
He thanked.
he hopes he becomes a customer. Like after he said he was first with AI PC, after Cristiano announced his chipset in Hawaii in December. That was classic.
Well, there was some jabbing, but there was also some, I would say, genuine mutual admiration that went around. I thought Cristiano was very humble, but also, knows that they've got what looks to be a very strong product portfolio and lineup that's going to hit the market, Pat. And then, of course, Jensen and Lisa showed up on day two. And, I watched what they talked about a bit remotely. And by the way, all the memes came out about the cousins, Jensen and Lisa being cousins.
I missed those.
I knew they were. Is that real?
That is real.
Okay.
That's real. Yeah.
So basically the two of them own like 87% of the, all the fabless, and they own about 99.9% of GPUs between the two of them.
What do you get your cousin for Christmas? Do you get them increased foundry wafer capacity, or you go all in on packaging and co-ops?
Yeah. Well, if you're fighting, maybe what you do is you just do some like margin destruction. You're like, I see what you got going on there. These MI300s, I'm gonna have your margins next year. I don't know. It's interesting, Pat. But overall, like I said, look, I walked away with a couple things. HP is incredibly committed to its partner-led strategy. That hasn't changed. They understand the partner's role and what it has to play. They see the AI PC wave. I think they're cautious about it. I actually think they're very cautious. They're very focused on continuing to deliver experiences that make remote and hybrid, and they're very focused on hybrid, and hybrid is not remote. And, they're also very actively working to transition their revenue to more and more subscription. And with things like the Magic Ink and on the print side of the business, people don't always recognize how much they do that's recurring. But it's going to be a super competitive market. No question. This next year, standing out is going to be tough. I think HP is up to the challenge, but I'm really excited to kind of see, Pat. I love a little competition and how it can drive, innovation in the market. AI PC is going to drive crazy competition in the market. Silicon craze, design, OEM, ODM craze. And of course, Apple, they got to get in the fray at some point. They're like, we do an AI PC. They're like, do you? I don't know. Let's talk about that. So, all right, let's hit topic 2, Pat. Let's talk a little earnings. I think my tweet said one of the best run companies on the planet delivers on top and bottom once again. Yeah. Although was a little light on its guidance, Broadcom. Let's talk Hawkonomics. Let's talk a little Hawkonomics right now. Companies up 34%, year on year, but about 11% revenue ex VMware. So this VMware ad really did make a huge delta to the bottom line. The company, drew an almost $7.156 billion of EBITDA adjusted on the first year on its revenue. And I want you to guess what percentage of revenue this company's EBITDA is, Pat. You know how much I love EBITDA, right?
Oh, no, it's incredible. And by the way, their margins are just like 77% gross margins are just like amazing.
But guess what's left after that? What the EBITDA number is?
I don't know.
Take a stab just for fun. Let's have some fun.
As a percent?
As a percentage of all of its revenue, how much of its EBITDA?
Oh, 20%. I'm going to guess
60% of its revenue is adjusted EBITDA. So
sorry, I was thinking of
netting. Yeah, dude, don't worry. It's such an absurdly high number that the number you gave is very typical as to where companies land 10, 20, 30 for a well-run company. 60% of the company's revenue.
Wait, 60% after R&D?
Adjusted EBITDA. Yeah. Now, again, the adjustments, I don't know how much they're pulling
embarrassed. I've embarrassed myself.
Yeah, we can edit that out. Pat,
but we are live.
Pat, take a stab. What percentage of their revenue do you think was adjusted EBITDA?
Typically in the industry, it's like 20%, but I'm guessing 60-ish%.
Yeah, let's say that's probably it. Actually, good job, Pat. It's 60% on the head. So the company, continued, it reiterated its guidance of about 50 billion with an adjusted EBITDA of 30 billion next year, Pat. So their guidance was just a little bit below consensus, but it was right there. And of course, the company is continuing to pay down debt, pay a dividend, and the stock has just been high flying, Pat. I mean, I think it crossed $1,350 a share this week. I think it even broke $1,400, which it was trading at like 800 like 6 months ago. So while yes, NVIDIA has been the fastest growing, this one has just been slow and steadily gaining about 100% year to date, or in the last, whole year. Just a couple other items on the company's business. The semiconductor business grew 4%. The infrastructure software business, accretive to the VMware, was up 153%. So big accretive add with the inclusion of VMware. And overall, Pat, all we can say is that Hawkonomics work. Hawkonomics deliver.
Is that a new thing? Did you just make up another one?
I'd been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, but I've decided to go all in on making sure that on the record, I've never heard anyone else say Hawkonomics, but I'm pretty sure that this is a new way of running a business. I did say it to the board in one of my board meetings, and then I did say it to my leadership team in a meeting that there's something to be said for the way this man runs this company.
Sure is. Hey, I'm gonna just try to add some filler to what you said. So, kind of some big things here. AI revenue quadrupled year on year to 2.3 billion. I thought that was incredible. I gotta tell you, software consolidated bookings going from less than 600 million to 1.8 billion to over 3 billion in Q2. And by the way, that number was so big that Hawk got a bunch of questions from investors in the call. And basically, he was like, we're upselling on VMware, right? It's all about VMware Cloud Foundation, right? Which is compute, storage, networking, virtualization, right? And I just thought that I love that number is just astounding. And that the investors had to do a double take when he pulled that out. Pretty big, and then get into the semiconductors. Aside from AI, it was very similar to what you would expect in the industry, right? They sell a lot to Apple, and Apple is down, so their wireless revenue was down. Imagine that. Storage industry is down, and therefore their storage number was down. And so was broadband related to all the carriers, which is down. And we're going to see some very similar stuff when we talk about Marvell, though. And by the way, final thing, I love when Hawk talks about Tomahawk. He loves talking Tomahawk. Tomahawk is essentially the basis for
the Tomahawk.
Yeah, totally.
Tomahawk.
Yeah. Whoa, Dan. Jeez, God, you're just nailing it today. No, Tomahawk is basically the glue that's pulling all these AI systems together. And guess what? It's off the rail, and they just keep cranking it out, and printing money. So, anyways, stock was down. Whatever. I don't care about it.
Down for a moment. That's not the business we're in. What does it mean? What does it mean?
I don't even care.
Listen, it was a good set of results. It's only going to, this company, 20-30% of a AI compute bomb is going to be networking.
Yeah.
And, you're going to need a lot of custom silicon. You're going to need a lot of custom compute. You're going to need a lot of networking and connectivity. I don't think Broadcom sits in a bad position on the semi side. And then all the private AI that enterprises are going to need to build to take advantage of their data, it sure seems like VMware Cloud Foundation has the potential to be a good partner for that. So I think whether it's at the mainframe, in the cloud, or down to the silicon layer, it's pretty compelling. All right, let's move on. OpenAI, Pat. Elon Musk went on the record and said, if you change your name to Closed AI, I'll drop the suit. What's going on over there?
No, I know. So it's a pretty interesting back and forth between the companies. Elon's definitely going for it. And instead of Sam Altman responding, they have the first check writer to OpenAI, Vinod Khosla, aka Khosla Ventures, coming in to do the dirty work for Sam Altman and OpenAI. And it's kind of funny watching Vinod talk about all this. Because think about this, Dan. Let me get your attention here just real quick. What VC invests in a company that's not going to be for profit? Zero. Do people think we're this stupid? Now, you can set up a legal entity, right, that's very much a nonprofit, and then you can have a related entity that is very much for profit. And that is what's going on here. And so the conversation here is it profit or nonprofit? Is it open or closed, right? Clearly it's not. Clearly it is a for-profit. What is it worth? Its last money round was worth, what, $30 billion? Dan, I mean, it's completely crazy. We're not that stupid, people. And then second of all, is it open or not? And this idea of open, and Musk, by the way, was a co-founder of this, was let's leave it open so it doesn't get into nefarious hands, right? You distribute it, kind of like a distributed network back when music distribution was the way to do it. They were all ripping it off, but it was empowerment. And now OpenAI is very much closed. We don't know what the models are, how they were trained, how they were parsed. One person might say, hey, that's intellectual property, shouldn't share that. But other companies like IBM have shared the entire process about how models are done. And that is hence open. So interesting dialogue back and forth. The memes alone are worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I kept flashing you the Musk memes. It was just too fun. The guy's savage. I mean, just absolutely relentless. I mean, first of all, kudos to Microsoft for locking down. And when I mean locking down, I mean, I don't know if that's irony or if that's actuality, but the biggest and most important relationship with OpenAI, which is the most reputed and lauded large language model and company building this type of technology on the planet. You see what they're doing with Sora. You see what they've done with Dolly. It's not just ChatGPT. The stuff is incredible and it's very innovative. And we know that there's things in the lab that none of us have seen yet that are far more compelling. Of course, you'd want to tie that down in any way you can. And, you don't become the world's second most valuable company on the planet, or in this case now first, being Microsoft, by not seeing where the technology roadmap is going. Having said that, there's this whole debate about ethos. The ethos of OpenAI, the reason it was created was to actually make sure it never was distributed in a way that any one particular company could monopolize it. And so the questions that Musk is asking, the questions he's asking are substantial and legitimate and necessary. And we should be taking this with some level of seriousness as a society and want to know, how do we make sure that what's being built here is going to be democratized in the way OpenAI's vision set out? And or Musk's other big concern is if they, as they flip, because OpenAI has many entities. I read the first page of the lawsuit. There was like 28 entities that were related, and they have for-profit business ventures. How do we make sure that's governed to not create a very unique advantage to one company? So the non-for-profit status was used to build technology that basically one company then gets its hands on and is able to build unique intellectual property on top of and build competitive moats in the marketplace versus everyone else? These are questions that should be asked, need to be discussed. It's good Musk is asking them. For his political ideology, people won't take, certain people won't take his concerns as serious as need to be, but they should be taken seriously. This is a very real topic, and we will see how this plays out. I compliment Microsoft because they made the right move, Pat.
Do you think Microsoft will put their head in, or like, let's stay away from this thing? I mean, if you remember, they were very active when the coup happened, right? And then Satya's like, I know Satya's like, hey, we'll hire all of you. Come on in. He actually announced Altman, right, as joining the AI team.
Well, protecting the investment. My point is, it's kind of like tax write-offs, Pat. This is why I have no issue with Microsoft doing. This is like tax write-offs. Like people are like, oh, you wrote off a car. How'd you do that? It's like, well, if the government's going to give you the ability to do a tax write-off on something, you can't be mad at people for taking advantage of that.
Oh,
if Microsoft's going to be allowed to use the non-for-profits technology to build a for-profit competitive advantage, I think that's bright. That's smart of them. So it's going to be something to watch, and we'll have to keep an eye on it. Speaking of largest companies in the world, the third largest company this week, as we saw another massive rise, and Pat, this is like a daily changing item. When I think I put this topic down, NVIDIA had gained another AMD. They were sitting at like close to $2.4 trillion of market cap, maybe even 2.5. I'm trying to pull the chart right now because I don't want to undersell just how absurd this was. So they peaked out this week they were trading at $972, which they closed yesterday at $875. So it's $100 a share change, Pat. So the company's market cap had skyrocketed up to like 2.5 trillion. But in that past week, in the past month, this is probably just worth calling out. The company had soared past Google. It soared past Amazon. It then recently soared past Saudi Aramco, which was the only non-technology.
Right.
And then the irony, I think I tweeted something, and it wasn't that clever, by the way, but I tweeted something along the lines of, I guess AI is the new oil.
No, because we always, how many keynote speeches have you heard? And maybe
data is the new
years
oil,
ago, I did the same thing. Exactly.
So, data being the new oil, now AI being the new oil. Well, NVIDIA quickly passed, and by the way, is really one big earnings beat away from becoming the second or most valuable company in the world. That's the interesting data point of where we're at. And it's happened in such a short period of time. If you go back and you want to, go on a chart and you go back 3 months, the company's market cap has literally grown by $1 trillion.
Yeah.
In like just the past few months. That's like Qualcomm, Intel, AMD, and a Broadcom. That's all of them put together. Now, this is indicative of just how important and visionary Jensen Huang is, Pat. This is also frothy, unreasonable, unruly, and needs some check in terms of how fast it can grow, consolidate. And the rug pull last week was really interesting. I'm hoping. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just hoping to see this rug pull last a little longer so I can go in that Market Watch piece and do another victory lap about how I told you it was getting a little bit frothy up there. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to ask, did you see the Jensen interview at Stanford? I mean, it's pretty good. He's thrown out a few things like we have 100% inference market share. I don't think he wanted to say that given the regulators. He also said that the next generation of their AI cards, which you and I are going to both see at GTC, are going to be water cooled, right? Which, I'm not going to talk about NVIDIA being third most valuable company. I did want to pontificate a little on this. Water cooling, at least historically for me, has always been it's what you do when you run out of options. Okay. Meaning graphics card, we're going to make it go faster, or CPU, you do water cooling, right? If you want to win a benchmark war, right, you do liquid nitrogen. I did a couple of those when I was at AMD because we were running out of gas, right? This is what you do when you run out of gas. So, Daniel, it kind of makes me wonder, like, have we pulled every lever so far? We've done node shrinks, right? We've got disaggregated designs with chiplets, right? We've optimized packaging, and whether that's CoWoS, EMIB, Intel's 3D packaging. I always forget the code name for that.
Foveros?
Yeah, Foveros. But like, what's next? Are we going to literally start liquid nitrogen cooling these things? Are we going to move to more optical interconnects between GPUs as opposed to copper? Do we do a hard move to ASICs, right? Like, is it faster networking that's better distributing the workload across more nodes? We are running into a freaking wall here, and I'm really interested to go to GTC to see what they have in store. Like, how are we not hitting a wall, right?
How do we get more?
Yeah, how do we get the next big bump in performance at a reasonable power and heat, right? You saw that Amazon bought a freaking data center next to a nuclear power plant. I mean, that's just so awesome, right? I mean, I've got nothing against water cooling. It's funny, Steven's response to me was, there's nothing wrong with it. I never said there's nothing wrong with water cooling. I'm just saying, like, what rabbit do you pull out of your hat after this to get the next big bump in a year and a half or two?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you talk like that, it just makes it sound like you know something about semiconductors.
I don't know. I mean, some people may infer
Yeah.
that I know nothing about. I mean,
no,
I
just wanted you to know. I don't think you do.
I just read about it.
Well, read and regurgitate.
Selfie analysis is what I like.
I just scratch my head. You gotta, but no, listen, I was talking to Pat Gelsinger a couple of weeks back, and he was talking about, by the end of the decade, we're talking about 1,000 times order of magnitude more powerful AI silicon, 1,000 times or more from where we are today. And so how do we get that performance? How do we do it sustainably? Again, practical sustainability, meaning we can't have 60% of the world's power being consumed by data centers. It will not work. At the same time, and by the way, 100% of inference, Pat,
it's at 100% market share in inference. Now, in the context, I believe what he means is in the data center for large language models, right? Because the example that he used was every time you do a prompt, put a prompt in, that's inference. He's absolutely right. That was the context.
No, I get that. But then if it's 100%, then what about that one I did on the Grok? I'm not talking about Grok on Twitter. I'm talking about on the Grok chip, because I'm inferencing an LLM on Meta's Llama on that chip. So it's got to be like 99.9999%. But I'd like to put an asterisk to make sure that we're accurate here, because I did an inference on a non-NVIDIA chip on an LLM. It's happened. I've done one. Just saying, dude. I got to go there. All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk about Apple. So, look, Pat, Apple can be a bad actor at times. And once again, that seems to be rising to the surface.
Yeah, I mean, Apple is a leader in consumer design and a leader in consumer experiences. They've also become a leader in leveraging their monopoly position to either squash competition, squash suppliers, and in this case, it's with the DMA and with Epic Games. So literally, I don't know what in the hell is going on at Apple. This happened in a couple days. So first off, The EU asks Apple to stop its predatory monopolistic practices with something we've talked on the show before. That's called the DMA, right? And the DMA essentially outlines gatekeepers for ecosystems, technology, pricing, and power. And they asked all monopolists, by the way, it's not against the law to be a monopolist, it's against the law to limit competition if you are a monopoly. So Apple kind of sort of maybe complies and says, okay, if you stand on your left foot and put your hand on your head and spin around a few times, then okay, we'll let you put a payment mechanism in there. We'll let you set up your own store in here, right? So Tim Sweeney, Epic CEO, sends out a tweet that Apple doesn't like, and they actually this is not me making stuff up, this is actually Apple put in their response Tim Sweeney's tweet that essentially said that Apple management is completely screwed up. They turned off Epic's right to publish their app store in the EU. Turn it off. They rescinded their developer contract, Dan. They cut them off. In a shocking speed, the EU, which typically, if you look at the Adobe Figma, operates at glacial speeds, really slow, fast tracks an investigation into Apple, right? And then the day after, Apple reinstates Epic, Sweden, to create their own game store. And I got to tell you, if this was a one-off, Dan, it would be one thing, but it's just not. I really, really think regulators should just take the double or the triple take. Who cares about a $1.3 billion judgment? Apple makes that, I don't know, in half a day, Dan. Like, fines just don't matter. Do they break them up? Do they put other restrictions on them? I think bringing in alternative app stores into iOS globally should be the next step. Is it going to be as pristine? No. But charging 30%, 20, 30%, and yeah, I know lower for very small companies, for something that you created how many years ago and you literally invest nothing into? The App Store is basically streams out applications, does a security check. By the way, it's not great, as we've seen from all the nefarious apps that Apple let in. I think we need change, Dan. Bigger change.
Oh, you listen.
Oh, one final thing. The
Yeah.
guy that wrote a beautiful article about this, and get this in the show note, is Dean Takahashi. He's at VentureBeat. He's been there forever. I've known him almost 25 years. This guy never gets excited. He just gets excited about a game, but he never gets excited about that. He wrote an opinion piece on VentureBeat that you really have to read. And it's very long, and it also talks about what does this mean for the Apple Vision Pro App Store, right? Like, should developers get on? Yes or no? I don't know, Dan. I keep waiting for the shoe to drop with Apple. I've read, by the way, I was part of the Apple ecosystem. Steve Jobs put my product, the Compact Presario 4540, on stage, flashed it up there during his iMac launch. So yeah, I'm kind of part of Apple. Did I also tell you Apple tried to recruit me in this same time frame? We'll make another show about that, but that was fun. I'll tell you the full story about Apple trying to recruit me to be a product manager.
You would have been a darn good product manager at Apple.
But I think I would have too. In my 20s, I could take punishment a lot. And that's very much the culture at Compact Computer in the mid 90s. 95, probably to 98. And by the way, Apple almost went out of business, and they
Hey, you
required
remember who wrote him a check? Remember who wrote him a check?
Microsoft.
Yeah, bet you they regret that now.
Oh my gosh! But the feds were so on Microsoft's back, they had to. But Microsoft could have literally stopped doing applications for the Mac and killed it.
There's a couple of companies you could write a check for, maybe help out. Listen, I've got a kind of a short. This is actually very contrasting to what I believe, but I want to just kind of put another side out here. I believe Apple is not only a monopolist, but continuously and pervasively acts in ways that are non-competitive everywhere in every opportunity.
Qualcomm.
That's just one of, imagination technologies. But they've got everything from small companies that they've used supplier power to put out of business to bigger companies that they've used non-payment, threats of legal action. But here's the thing, and here's why antitrust needs to be completely rethought. And I've said this before on this show. This isn't new. We've talked about this. But the reason it doesn't work is because in order to drive competition, we also have to deal with how are consumers being harmed. And what do I mean? Well, the bottom line is this. The consumers like the App Store. They like the experience, and they don't care about what Epic pays. They just don't. And unless you can start to show them that by using some alternative App Store, they actually personally, financially are going to benefit, it's going to be very hard to get the public rowdy and focused on actually seeing, it's basically telling everybody that the company that they buy their favorite toy from is evil. Pat, the company likely performs or knowingly has slaves that build their stuff. Like literally, I mean, like this isn't the worst thing they do.
No, I know. Yeah, nobody talks about it. It's
so what amazing. I'm saying is the gut interpretation of the law, of the intent, of the ethical, the ethical moral bankruptcy of the people that do this stuff. But having said that, like I said, I mean, they're doing that. So it's like, are we really going to worry about, the App Store? Like people are like, oh, my app works. I like it. It's safe. I know where,
Oh, Tim Cook is so cuddly and friendly. He's like my grandfather that I never had.
He's he's just a nice guy.
He is.
He's very nice.
Just a nice guy until he rips out your throat. By the way, a fun fact.
See Mortal Kombat? What's that one? When they pulls the hand and pulls the heart out.
By the way, where Tim Cook worked before he went to Apple?
Didn't he work with you? You guys were like on the path side by side, and No, I went off to do Moor Insights, and he went off to run Apple, and
like
the rest is history.
Listen, I was a group product manager. That was the fancy name. I was a product manager that had other product managers working for me, and Tim was the SVP of operations. I got sideways with his people once because I wanted to take my product. Dan was the first high volume product that used ODMs in Taiwan, right? And Compaq had a bunch of factories, and his team did not like me taking products for final assembly out of his factories, and he said I was basically on my own, and that's all I had to hear. I was like, great. I'm on my own. I'm 27 years old. I got $1.5 billion product line that I'm going to take out and make a ton of money.
All right. Speaking of making a ton of money, it appears AMD and NVIDIA are going to continue to be challenged to make a ton of money in China. So we've heard about NVIDIA's woes and chip controls that have continually thwarted efforts to build what they kind of call throttled back AI chips that can be used for hopefully what would be considered non-essential, non-military, not, in many ways, non-economic advantage building capabilities, yet still allow U.S. companies to participate in the significant market opportunity that is China. What was basically this week, Pat, there was a Bloomberg story that broke. It was a product that a China-tailored product by AMD referred to as the MI309 is what they're calling it, according to people. And it's not clear who's trying to buy it. but basically more or less that U.S. regulators told AMD that it is too powerful to sell without a license. And so basically AMD is going to need to go back to the drawing board on this particular piece at this moment. So apparently AMD thought it had met the requirements for the throttled down. Now we've talked about the requirements have been set. They're clear. They're understood. They haven't changed, but they're eligible to change at any moment. And there is an malleability to these metrics right now. And I'm going to do a reiteration here because I think it's really important. There's three major reasons that the U.S. is so focused on the semiconductor industry. It's national security, it's technology leadership, and it's supply chain resiliency. And why do I say these three things? Because global economic dominance comes down to having the strongest national defense, the strongest and most robust supply chain, and of course, being the global leaders in technology. So right now, of course, this is where there's a push and pull with NVIDIA, with AMD. They want to sell these chips into China. There's a huge amount of demand for them. There was companies like Baidu, Tencent, that basically said they have multi-years of NVIDIA chips that are powerful enough to continue to advance their products and services. They have multiple years worth of product still. This is where we've talked about the fact that we have seen a load of this stuff sold into these cloud scale companies. Yeah. They've been buying truckloads of these things. Do not for a minute think that all the stuff NVIDIA has sold over the last few quarters has been implemented or deployed. So the question mark basically is, you got Huawei building their own, we know that's happening. We know China is going to focus on empowering its own. So if we don't sell them into China, China will double down, and there is the EUV conversation, but we've seen recently now PC cores are not the same thing, or mobile device cores are not the same thing as building data center cores, but we've seen the newest Honor phone. Absolutely, we didn't talk about it, but absolutely gouging market share from Apple with a new design that people are loving, built on 7 nanometer. So that's without right. EUV. So some fascinating stuff going on, Pat. But bottom line here is another roadblock hit. AMD is not yet cleared, and this is going to be a headline that's going to be recycled several times. I think we're going to keep tuning them down because we do not want to let China catch us in the race for artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so I wrote a research note related to NVIDIA when there was a lot of discussion about this. And essentially, there's 3 tiers that the U.S. Department of Commerce looks at. And think of an XY axis. On the x-axis, you have performance density. On the y-axis, you have total processing performance. And there's kind of this red, yellow, and green, right? Green is, hey, don't bother us. You don't need a license, right? Typically, below 1600 TPP and increment on performance. On the yellow, that's called moderate performance, right? The vendor gives the U.S. government notice, waits up to 25 days of approval. And these have a TPP of 1600 to 4800, but are primarily governed by performance density between 1.6 and 6. They've got red. That requires an all-in license, right? TPP above 4800 and nearly anything with a performance density above 6. And these are reviewed with a presumption of denial. So if you want to look at the gory details of how this stuff happens, and it's apparent, here's the odd thing, is whether you're AMD or NVIDIA, you know what the rules are, and you're gonna go in there, unless of course it's a red. So it's just shocking to me that people would put together a chip and spend the time to do that, and then it fails that level. But listen, this is the U.S. government. I find it amazingly ironic. Dan, you and I could cross the border and stick one of these cards in our luggage. Not that we would. And I know people like, listen, NVIDIA only sells racks, right?
Systems, maybe.
PGX and systems, and they're right. But you could hypothetically come across the border with a card, AMD or NVIDIA, and marry it up with a system afterwards that you could get over the border. The other thing is that neither AMD or NVIDIA does not phone home for drivers. So if you have the drivers, you have the card, you pull in the system from the other end, you have it. So I don't think this stuff is even controllable, Dan.
Yeah, well, what you just said is probably intentional in many ways. And let's be very candid about, there's a pretty good understanding that around the world, there is a very robust gray market to move this product around. It's not done nefariously, but it's kind of like watches, Pat.
I mean, it's funny sometimes it is. When I was at AMD one time, in the front of USA Today business section was a picture of my product line in Iran.
But that's what I mean. Like,
you know what I mean? Like it's like, how did that get there?
This is like arms dealing, though. Right now,
yeah,
it's just the
100%.
arms is artificial intelligence. I don't know. We'll figure out some tacky thing that I can put a wrapper around. All right, so Pat, let's end on a quickie. Kick it back your way, Marvell. So data and accelerated infrastructure. We talked about Avago, Broadcom. Another one that reported this week as well, Marvell.
Yeah. So again, the stock didn't do very well after this, and I'm going to focus on kind of long term here. But for the quarter, data infrastructure was 89% of total revenue. A big message here, as it slowly is unwinding its consumer assets. And I know it's hard to believe that Marvell was ever in consumer, but they were the storage technology to the consumer market for years, and they're still shipping products into even game consoles. So it's really a tale of two cities here. First is the data center city, which grew 54% year over year. And then there's the enterprise networking, carrier infrastructure, and auto and industrial, which had some pretty big declines. And even though data center revenue was up, it just wasn't enough to offset the decliners. And I want to be really clear. It's not that Marvell's doing anything wrong, right? This is market led. Some interesting stuff that came up on the call that I wanted to talk about. And one was that the company said it's expecting its 2 AI compute programs, read that as AI SoC or AI ASIC. We don't know what that is yet, to have a very substantial ramp in the second half of the fiscal year. That's
optimized silicon, Pat?
That's exactly right. That's the AI optimized silicon. We don't know if it's an ASIC like Broadcom does on SoC. I'm guessing it's a full tilt SoC, given the intellectual property that Marvell brings to the table. And then I look long term. I mean, I got to tell you, the way to lower power and increase speed is through fiber. Okay, and this company, more than any company, has some incredible assets that not only connect, let's say, racks inside the AI data center, but it connects other data centers as well. And we're getting to 1.6 terabit PAM for the interconnect inside, and on what they call DCI products, that's between, you're looking at 400 moving to 800 gigabit per second traffic. So long term, I mean, they are in the right place. Imagine, when these markets that are in the toilet, I mean, we saw what happened to Cisco, okay? Enterprise networking, not great, okay? Carrier, right? People are struggling to find monetization for 5G, down. Industrial IoT and overall automotive, down. Anyways, future opportunities are bright for this company.
Yeah, I tend to stay bullish in sentiment on this one, because I think the need for the accelerated infrastructure is a lagging data point from all the investment in compute. You heard us talk about 2 years worth of compute horsepower sitting in a Chinese cloud provider that haven't been yet implemented and deployed. So have they lit up the north south on these things yet and all that's required? Have they even bought it? Because one is if they don't believe they again, capital expenditure, they're buying all the GPUs because it's like an arms race. They got to get their hands on them. They got to fill up trucks with them. But you can get the networking chips later. You don't have to buy all that in advance necessarily. So some of that purchasing can come later. It's the same thing Cisco's saying about private enterprise data center, edge, clouds, telecommunications, network, north south. But for AI, that's part of it. But Pat, also look, the numbers are moving and trending in the right direction. I mean, they had quarter-over-quarter growth. It was small, but they had data center quarter-over-quarter growth of 38% and a 54% year-on-year. So they're getting the bump on a year-on-year basis. And they saw their data center revenue grow to record levels, close to $800 million in the last quarter. And they had their AI revenue exceed $200 million in a quarter. So they're near on pace to have $1 billion annual run rate for AI accelerated infrastructure. They're going to be building ASIC or system for AI. And they're going to be able to basically provide that to companies. They're going to be one of the people answering questions about creating those custom AI chips that are going to be used. This is going to be one of the companies that are going to provide it. So I like their prospects long term. I mean, look, this is always going to be less sexy than GPUs or even just kind of companies that focus purely on compute. They're a company that's well diversified. And that diversification can be very beneficial at times, and it can also be problematic at times. So right now with the carrier numbers being pretty horrific, it's offsetting all the good stuff that's going on for them in the data center. But there was a period of time where industrial and carrier were carrying while the other stuff. So very rarely are they all moving. So when you're more diversified, you tend to suffer cycles. When you're less diversified, you're more boom and bust. So I like Marvell's business overall. I've been bullish on it for a long time. I liked it before people even knew to like it. And now it is coming good because that networking bomb, that connectivity, that accelerated infrastructure, and those custom chips will all be more in demand in future quarters. So Pat, there you have it. We did our show. We did it on the weekend. It's
57 minutes. The 6-7.
The 6.
The 7-5.
7-5. God, shouldn't be that confusing. All right. It's only worse than trying to put something on my calendar when I'm in a different time zone. I don't know why that's so hard. You'd think,
I needed help from you that last time in Spain. We were trying to get that meeting together. I'm like, Dan, do you just tell me
doesn't it feel like this is a large language model thing or something you could solve with a really smart AI assistant?
I hope so.
Gosh, you think it could be done by now? I think it probably is. We just need to find it. So, all right, well, you're going to be crushing it around South by Southwest, and I'm actually slipping out of town. I'm going to be up in New York celebrating 60 years of mainframes. Don't ask. I'll tell you more about it later. And then I'm coming back, and I'm going to be hanging out at the lake in a bunker, enjoying a little spring break and enjoying getting away from the city of Austin when everything's going on for South by Southwest. But hey, listen, good show. It's good seeing you. Welcome back. Let's have a great weekend. And you out there, have a great weekend. Subscribe to the show. Send your good feedback to me and everything else to Pat. But for this episode,